Welcome to this DaVinci Resolve Fusion node breakdown. Today's node is the tracker node. So we're going to jump into Fusion where I've got some footage and I'm going to bring in a tracker node. Shift space, T-R-A-C-K, tracker node. And we're going to input it in. Now I'm going to be breaking up this node breakdown into three parts. And today I'm just going to cover the basics of tracking and using the trackers to track stuff. And tomorrow, part 2, I'll cover these operations and we'll go over stuff like match moving and stabilizing footage. And then part 3, I'm going to go over problems and issues like trackers going off screen, and like if we were tracking, say, this pinata or a person walking in front of it and losing that track. I will cover that in part 3, and that will involve using these adaptive modes and path center. So I will be skipping these today, but I will come back to them. So jumping into the tracker node. Now, by default, our tracker node is giving us one IntelliTracker. And what the IntelliTracker is, it's the kind of the latest neural engine or AI-based tracker. And it's really good. It pretty much does all the work for you when it comes to tracking. And I'm going to go ahead and shut this off. And down here in our tracker list, I just shut that off. You can see when you have your check mark on, that means it's going to track and use that data. So even if I had another one and I had that check mark on, it's going to redo our track data. It's going to retrack, and you don't want that. So once you have your track complete, you can either shut it off, which means no data is going to be visible to any other node, and it's not going to be visible within this node, or you can select it again till you get that little white dot. That means your data is available to this node and other nodes you use, but it's not going to retrack. So it's basically shutting that tracking off. So I'm going to go ahead and just shut this off for now, and we're going to add a point tracker. And what the point tracker is it's the old legacy style tracking. So if you have old version of DaVinci Resolve with the old version of Fusion, this may be the only option you have. And it's good, but I will cover it just in case you don't have the IntelliTrack. Because whatever this point track can do, the IntelliTracker can do even better. So I personally never use point tracks anymore. I always use IntelliTracks. But the point track, what the point track does is, I'll turn this back on so you can see the difference, is the point track gives you a pattern area. And this is the pattern you're kind of dictating. Now the search itself is within this dotted line. So it's searching all around here within these pixels to find this pattern you're dictating. Whereas the IntelliTracker just has one box and it's just searching within those pixels intelligently. So let me shut this back off. So if I needed to, say, track this light, I could select this square and move my track pattern to around that light. I can even minimize it if I want by selecting the sides and clicking and dragging. And as I mouse over this area, you can see our search area pops up, and our search area can be scaled up or down as well. So we can minimize that search area to make it a little faster. So this is the pattern it's looking for within this search area. Now, before I actually start tracking and going over this stuff, let's go over these windows down here. Because what this window is showing is it's showing our pattern that we selected. And it's showing it in regards to what channel we have selected for it to do the search with. And when these bars are dark, that's the one that the point tracker is using, or any tracker is using to track data. So right now it's on luminance. So it's tracking the luminance of our footage. If we wanted to track our RGB channels, we could select our RGB. We could select only red, only green, only blue, our alpha channel if we had one, where we can select auto, and it's going to try to find what channel it believes is the best to track. And so this one is our red channel. over here, we have our selected channel that we selected, it's showing, or we can just show all of our RGB channels. Now this window over here isn't going to populate until we actually track, and then it's going to give us this little flip book that we can kind of flip through to see what's going on. So we're going to leave this on auto and let it track what it thinks is the best. Now up top we have tracking, and this is tracking reverse. This is tracking forward and reverse. This is tracking forward. Track reverse 1 frame, stop the tracking, or track forward 1 frame. So since we're in the first frame, we could hit track forward and it'll track the entire footage. If say we were in the middle of our footage and that was the best place, because you want to find your best place to get that pattern data. And if we felt this was our best place for that pattern data, we would select that, and then we could hit the track forward and track reverse. And what it's going to do is it's going to track forward, go back to our original playhead position, and then track backwards. It's not going to track forward and then track everything backwards again. So let's go ahead and select forward and reverse tracking. And you can see the only thing visible is our search area, not the entire footage. So there we go. That is our tracked point. Now, once we have our track point, you can see we have this little flip book here. And if we hit play, we can kind of see how that track is tracking. And that's actually showing what frame we're on as it's going through. So it just allows you to view a little closer. Now down here, our pattern width, we can change our pattern width and we can animate it if we need to. Our pattern height, we can animate it. Our search width, our search height, our track center, and our offsets. So what our offsets are, it's given an offset for that track. So say we really wanted to track this light, the actual light bulb, but you really can't see it. And it doesn't have much tracking data, so we ended up tracking this. So what we could do is we could use this offset, and we can offset our track, and it'll give us offset data to use on other nodes. So it would actually offset our track. And if you wanted to, you could keyframe it and go to the end and change it. But you've also got this little gizmo up top, and this is for adjusting your offset. So right now we can't select it. If I click on this, now I can select that offset and move it to change where that keyframe is. We can go in the middle, make sure it's right, and we can keyframe that offset throughout our entire footage. Let me shut that off, and I'm going to go ahead and clear this offset out because we don't want it. Now within your tracking list, you can rename your trackers as well. So it's good practice for naming conventions so you don't start getting lost. So I can double click this and hit light, and I can shut that light off and we can track something else. So let's go ahead and track our ice cream cone, and we're going to use the IntelliTracker for this. So I'm going to select our IntelliTracker and just select a good area on our ice cream cone. I'm going to select auto, so it's automatically selecting the best color channels, and I'm going to track forward. So now we have our track of our ice cream cone. Now within our track, if we need to adjust anything, if you highlight over, we can see all of our track points. And say I wasn't quite sure about this little bump area right here. We can find that, see what's going on, and it looks good because she does bump up. But if I really needed to, we could zoom in. And once I select that B-spline, you notice we have all these tools to edit our B-spline. So if you needed to edit anything on your track, you could just grab it and edit it, and it'll change that track for you. I'll go ahead and undo that. And if you hit that lock button, it'll go back to your original spline and not be editable. Well, it is editable, but not selectable right now. So now we've got that track. So how can we use this? So down here are inputs, which I probably should cover first. We've got our mask input if you need to throw a mask on this and only track a certain area of the footage. You have your background input, which is needed, and this is the input that's using to track that footage. Then you have a foreground input, and this foreground input is for anything you want to attach to that tracker. But you don't necessarily need something to attach to the tracker, because even though I'm going over this tomorrow, I'll just show you real quick. If say I wanted to stabilize this ice cream cone in the center of the footage, I could go to Operation, Match Move, and only select my background. And now if I play it back, it'll be match moving to my track, keeping that track stabilized in the footage. And just for practical purposes, this is I do see and hear a lot of people asking, why would you ever use 8K or 12K footage? This is exactly why you would use 8K or 12K footage. If you know you're doing a shot like this and you shot 8K, you would have all that additional data in there, so this wasn't happening. Same with 12K. If you had 12K, you'd have so much more data in there, and you would be able to crop in, and you wouldn't have this happening. You'd have a nice stabilized shot with all your information in it. Anyway, moving on. So let's go ahead and switch that back to none. But this is also where you would put anything that you needed to be attached. So say we needed to attach something to this. Let's go ahead and grab a background. Change our color up. Let's just get a little border going. And we'll leave it solid. And we'll make it a little smaller. So if I took this background and attached it to my foreground, and I went to Match Move, and I selected foreground only. Oh, sorry. Foreground over background. Now our little circle would be following that ice cream cone. And you could either move it within here so it was in place, or I personally like using a transform node after that, so I know I transformed the location, and now it's following our ice cream cone. And we can come in here and change our size a little bit. But this isn't needed to be able to use this tracker. So a more practical way to use tracker data like this is to not have the tracker connected at all. once you get your track, I like to disconnect it. And I also like to name it. So let's actually go back into our tracker. And I'm going to delete this light track. I'm going to name this ice cream cone. And I'm going to rename this. Remember, if you hit F2, you could rename your nodes. And point tracker. Ice cream. So now we can take all this stuff we built and we can actually build something better. So let's actually go, let's look at our background here. And we're going to disconnect this. We're going to add a multi-merge. And let's add a text. And let's say, yum. And let's add, bring our background in, our little text. And let's move our text off to the side. And then let's go ahead and create a spline. And we'll just go from there to there. And we're going to give it a border. And let's copy this. Bring that in. Whoa, our border's way too big. Let's bring our border down. And let's input this into our multi-merge. Let's move our spline around a little bit. There we go. And we can bring this transform in. And we can bring a merge. And let's bring all that into our merge. So now we've got that. Now we just need to take our transform and move it back to our ice cream cone. Back to our ice cream cone. And within our transform node, what we can do is we can go to our center, right click, connect to. We've got all these options for our ice cream right here. But what we're going to really do, and right here you see that offset position. If we needed to attach it to the offset position, it would be right there. But we're just going to attach it to our IntelliTracker Path 1 position. And let's readjust this by going into our merge. We can go into our merge and we can actually change our center of all this stuff a little bit. So it's more in there. Now if we play it back, we've got everything tracking to our ice cream cone. And we can even add more stuff if we wanted to. We can, let's see, add a little animation. We can copy our lips, paste it. Let's rescale that up. And let's go ahead and add a bitmap. And we're going to select luminance, crank it up a little bit, and we can input this into our multi-merge. And there we go. We've got something spinning in the middle, but we can go to our media of our little, because basically what I did is used this footage right here that's spinning. So we can go in here and hit loop, And we can add a time speed node. We can speed that up, say by 5. So now it's spinning a little faster. There we go. And let's look at our little output here. And now we've got that. So that is the tracker. And like I said, tomorrow we will jump into getting into our actual operations when it comes to match move and doing all that fun stuff. And part 3, we will go over our trouble areas and start getting into these frames per point, adaptive mode, pass center to start fixing some of our problematic tracks. So I will see you in the next node breakdown.